Now, a lot of you might accuse me of being a bedwetter or the likes, but for me, after that Dundee match, I can't help but feel like for Rangers, this title race is all but over. A 0-0 draw with Dundee in a game where you would probably be forgiven for thinking that Dundee were in this title race and not Rangers. I mean, let's be honest, the entire game, I don't feel like there was any sort of energy about it. You didn't see any character. We were lethargic, out of ideas, lacking leadership. There was no real spark in the team whatsoever. It was pretty much a copy and paste game from Ross County and from that first half of the Old Firm. Now, games like this, we could sit here and analyse, the team selection, the tactics, all of that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, what we're seeing right now is something we've seen often over the past few seasons, and that is that we seem to have a spine of a team that lacks conviction towards the end of the season. When times get tough, when things get hard, when there's high pressure, important matches domestically, this team seem to just fall off the edge of a cliff. And for me, it's happened far too many times. And when that happens, you can only question the leadership within the team, and that's been a topic of heated debate over the past couple of weeks, but it's also been a topic of debate in previous seasons when these kind of things have happened as well. At the end of the day, I don't think we've got any players in there that when the going gets tough, they can dig in, show a bit of character and pull out a performance or pull the team out a hole. I just don't believe we have that. And although this debate's been raging for a while and I've kind of been on the fence about it, I just can't help but feel like this Dundee game, and obviously still mathematically possible we could win the league, but let's be honest, it's looking a lot harder. You need to rely on Celtic now dropping points. I think we're 3 behind as well, and not only that, that's secondary. Celtic dropping points. We don't even have the confidence that we're not going to drop points. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read you a wee bit of a blog post I put on the Blue Sea Patreon, a wee bit about that later on, about the leadership within this team, the supposed old guard, and it's that, for me, far too often his standards been allowed to slip. During that Ross County defeat, you could see that the players lacked drive, concentration and ideas. There was a feeling that the team lacked that boot up the arse. The defence was a mess under the leadership of Goldson, who hasn't really been the same player after returning from injury. The midfield was non-existent and lacked any control of the game under the leadership of Lundstrom, which also was the case in the catastrophic first half of the Old Firm. At this stage of the season, performances like this being allowed to happen just isn't acceptable in the fans' eyes, and I can't help but feel like ending the league campaign empty-handed would be the final nail in the coffin for the old guard in the fans' eyes. And after, looking and analysing that performance, we get another one that was very similar. I'll admit, without conceding, but a very, very similar performance in a period of time where we need 3 points more than anything. The thing about tonight was we didn't even come close to being seen as dangerous within the team. There was no creativity up top. Again, when you've got a non-existent midfield, it's one thing having a non-existent midfield in defence, like when you're in a defensive aspect of play, but attacking, there was literally nothing. There was so many balls going forward to players who couldn't hold the ball up, to players who, didn't look like they had the ability to create anything special. There wasn't one player in that team that looked like they could pull us out a hole. No one get pass marks in the slightest. You couldn't even, in previous games you could say, this player had a wee bit of a decent game, so, we'll get off his back a wee bit. Literally no one, none of the starting players, none of the subs made any impact whatsoever, and that is absolutely terrifying. And I know there's still going to be a lot of people out there saying, keep the faith, we're still in it. And I'd agree with you, we are still in it. It's only a 3-point gap. But at the end of the day, 5 points out of 15 at the business end of a season, it's inexcusable. Now, there are players in this team with potential, and there are always going to be players coming in to supplement this team and try and develop it and bring it forward. But at the end of the day, I can't help but feel like it's time to move on. It's time for a new era at the top of the hierarchy within that squad. I'm talking your Taverniers, your Goldsons, your Lundstroms. At the end of the day, in previous seasons, yes, we had the Europa League, we had that magical period of time, but if you're using that as a defence for the old guard, then, well, let's be honest, we were underdogs in every single game. You know, the players along with the fans were just turning up to enjoy the moment, enjoy the football, and try and keep that dream alive. We were underdogs. There was no pressure at the latter stages of the Europa League, whereas domestically at the business end of the season, it's maximum pressure, and time again, these players have proved to us, these leaders have proved to us that they just don't cut it. For me, whether Clement agrees with me or not, come the summer, I think it's time for a new era. I think it's time to move on. I think it's time to cut our ties and freshen up the squad. I can take a poor performance if we've got the conviction to come away with the 3 points, you know, at a push. I prefer a performance. But right now, not only have we not got a performance, but with no energy, with no enthusiasm, players don't really look as interested as they did, and I just feel like the team lacks leadership in general. To me, if Clement doesn't completely gut this squad over the summer, we're only ever going to see a copy and paste of the exact same next season and the season after that. In my opinion, any bids for these so-called leaders, these key players that come in during the summer, and pretty much bite their hand off for it. It is time for a clean slate. It's time for a fresh slate. It's time for a new chapter moving forward. We want to be pushing for titles, and this year we did push for a title, but it seems with every single minute, every single second that's played of football, those hopes just completely fall off a cliff. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to jump into the comments. Let me know if you think the title race is over or if it's still on. Obviously, mathematically, it's still on. But for me, watching the performances that this squad puts in and the form we're currently in, I just don't see it happening. I don't see us being able to have the mentality to push and get our hands on that title. I just think this squad is consistently buckled under any sort of pressure. So jump into the comments, let me know what you think. Also, as I said previously, we have just launched the Blue Sea Patreon. It's a better way for us to be able to connect with you guys more intimately. You've got benefits in there like the Blue Room chat room, you've got blog posts, you've got exclusive content that won't be posted on YouTube. Also, we're planning on doing early access videos, not including these match reactions, but early access to our videos. So what I want you to do is I want you to follow the link in the description if that's your cup of tea, and pick the plan that most suits you. I'll see you next time.